Alright, today we're going to be wiring up my 1969 Mustang, and this is Project Nightshade. If you haven't seen any of the other videos, please check them out if you'd like. But what I've got is I've got all the wires taken out of the car, and I've picked up a universal wiring kit. The kit that I've got is from American Autowire, which I'll show you in a second. And it's gonna handle all of the traditional headlights, taillights, fuel sending unit, that kind of stuff. I got the universal kit so that I can tie it into the Dakota digital, the I Did It steering column, a lot of aftermarket parts that aren't necessarily original or married to the original Ford stuff. It opens up doors. And then also I've got the Hyperspark setup, the Sniper EFI, and a new power distribution module that they've come out with. And I'll show you all that. You don't want to hear me talk about it though, you want to see it, so let's get after it. Now for the install of the wiring, I've got an American Autowire universal kit. It's one of their Highway series. But before I jump into that, I want to start out with the Sniper parts. And you saw it in the previous videos if you've been watching along. I need to come up with a spot to mount my power distribution module for the Sniper EFI and my Hyperspark coil driver. I could have tucked all these up under the dash and it would be a bit of a mess, but I wanted to do it this way on a single plate. That way I can wire a lot and design a lot on the table and then install it in the car. So right here I'm just figuring out where I can mount it on that cowl. I'm using some rib nuts and finding a location where this is going to clear that dash but also be accessible if I ever have to get to it through the glove box. Now while the lower dash is in, I did have to fit a couple of other items here, like this module I need for my air conditioning system. And there's going to be a whole nother video on the AC, so don't pay too much attention to that now, but I just wanted to get that in before I pulled the lower dash so I knew that it would clear it once everything was together. And the purpose of angling this down is so that I can see those lights through the glove box once everything's installed. Before I can powder coat this plate, I need to lay out and mark all of my holes, and then once it's drilled I'll put some rib nuts in it and make sure that everything fits right before I put it in that powder coating oven. With these last couple rib nuts in place, we can jump over and I'll show you the fuse panel that I've picked up and where I intend to mount this thing. Alright, so I'm mounting this main panel. Let me get some light under here. The factory location was up here in the back, right? And initially what I was thinking was I can mount this right up here like this, but that's going to be tough to get to under the dash if I ever have issues. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to template out some sort of plate that I can bolt to here in the old e-brake location, right? And then what I'd like to do is weld another bracket off of that so I can mount this up. And I'll tuck this wire out of the way so it's not near the clutch in any way. But ideally, I'd like to fix this in a way that it's kind of on an angle, so that if I ever need to, I can get up in there and actually look under it and see any of the fuses that are blown. Let me walk you through how I made my template for this. All I did was I identified which holes I wanted to use from the e-brake, and I took this simple piece of white computer paper and laid it on top of those holes. And with it fixed in one position, I used my finger to press each one of the bolt holes, and it made these cool little indentions on the paper. And I think you can probably see where I'm going with it from here. All that was left was I take this over to my metal, whatever piece of metal I chose, and lay it on top of it. And with that overlay, I can center punch each one of these holes, and that lets me be confident that this is going to fit perfect once it's done. So here it is, all tailored up. This is my template. You saw the little indentions. I trimmed it down and needed a little extension. Masking tape works great for that. taped it on both sides, and this is the final shape. So this will get cut out of this metal, and then I'll have a crossbar or a cross plate that comes off of that, and it'll give me a substrate to where I'm going to mount that fuse panel. Now while those parts are baking in the powder coating booth, let's jump back to the front of the car and I'll show you my main fuse block. The kit that I've got came with a dual main fuse block. It's 2 fuses that come straight off the battery. One of those fuses is going to go directly to that fuse panel, and it's the main circuit breaker. The other one is going to be for the alternator. In case this thing shorts out, it stops the car from trying to melt itself down. These I think are going to look the cleanest right here next to the start solenoid. Again, more riv nuts. I love these little riv nuts. It's a great way to mount things to thinner metal that's real secure, and they're stainless, so I shouldn't have to worry about them corroding or stripping on me over time. Well, I don't have one of the fancy hydraulic crimpers, but I do have this fun little tool, and all it is a punch that you can put the connector in and then whack it real good with your favorite hammer, and it puts a nice tight crimp on the connector. With both ends of it done, you'll see I've got some shrink wrap here just to keep the elements out. Well, I got the fuse block mounted, and what I've got here, I've got to run power from the battery up to the start of this fuse block, and then from there this is just directly connected. I'll put power up to this start solenoid. Now on the bottom side I've got 2 mega fuses. These are 175 amp fuses. One is the small cable you just saw me make, and I put a little protector on it that goes to the alternator, so that's protected. And the second circuit is this line I just started to run here. I was doing it off camera, and that's going to be my main power that's going to feed the fuse block. I'm going to hide this like I did the air conditioning line inside the fender well, and I've already got one of them set here. This one will catch here. I'll bring it in through the firewall on this protected side, and then I can run it through the dash over to the other side there. And my parts should be cooled now from the powder coat also. I've had those resting for a moment. But here's the panels that we just made that are ready to be installed. I'll get those screws out and I can put the boxes on that. And then same with this one here. Here's the main fuse panel, which turned out real nice. As far as I can get on the bench with wiring this, I've got the HyperSpark set to the PDM here, and I'm gonna take it to the car and continue wiring in the dash. And the reason for that is all of the wires coming off of the Sniper here are in a harness that's connected, and I can't cut it. I mean, I could, but I'd like to keep them whole wires. So what I did was I fished all of the wires through. I found an 1.25" opening here on the firewall, and all of the harness wires for this main harness, I fished them through. And then also my USB Bluetooth module rather for the controller, and everything, the fuse, everything that came with that. So all of it comes out real clean. The only thing that comes out is the main harness, which needs to be on the outside, and this connection. That way I can disconnect the throttle body if I ever need to, and of course the distributor wire. On the inside, I'll hook this up. I'll put it back where we mounted it before, and I can start wiring all of this into it in the car. And then another benefit of that is I can cut the lengths to true lengths, so I don't have a big bundle of wires underneath. Here's what I've got. I missed some of the footage on GoPro, but I've got my Sniper EFI wired up. You can see the HyperSpark box is tied into this PDM power distribution module. The feed in, the feed out. For the out, I've just got it run out here to in the fender well. It's grounded out. And then for the in, I run power over, and I'm gonna catch my main panel. I did run the ground directly to the battery like they call for the heating and air conditioning, and I need to run the power for that over there as well. And I think I'm at a good point to drop the dash in. Once I get this dash in, or the lower dash, that'll give me some channels and some areas that I can run wire through so that I'm not so constrained with my spaces. Some other wires got run also. Inside of the loom here, I've got 3 wires, which I'll show you at the back, that go tucked up in here real clean. Those are going to be for the fuel pump. So in the back of the car here, I've wired up my 14 gauge wires for the Sniper intake fuel pump, and then also an additional wire that's hiding in the back there for ground. One wire goes to ground for the sending unit, the other wire goes through. That's the 3rd wire I was talking about in the front. I ran them on the passenger side, that way it leaves this channel on the driver's side open for the taillights and all of the accessories that I'm going to run in the back, or any of the marker lights. And I think that's about where I've left off, so I'll jump back into another time lapse and I'll get better about filming this. I'm going to put the lower dash in it next and start wiring up this module. The workshop on this end is becoming a complete mess, but it's an organized chaos mess. Here's my panel that you saw before, just kind of mocked up. I've decided, or I've identified which of these I'm going to use for my Ford factory ignition switch. I'm going to wire that in. And then I've got all the circuits split, so all of the gauge circuits are here with the board that I need to wire up in a little bit. Hopefully I'll get to that tonight. Got a lot to do tonight. I've got these wires here for the all of the gauges also. On this end, I've still got my light kits, my steering column kit. These are all the wires I got set aside for the ignition accessory start. Here's the start wire, which I'm excited to get in there to fire this thing off. And then all of the other taillights and everything are on another circuit that are hiding over here. So, oh, and there's one more on the floor over here that I've got set aside. This is gonna be all of the circuit for my backup lights, radio, which I'm not gonna run. A lot of this won't get used. Well, that didn't take long. I measured all this, but apparently I've got some interference issues right here. I don't know if you can see here. But right on this rib, I'm gonna mark this and that'll be an easy fix. I'll just trim that out of there. Well, one of the things I've got to do now is integrate this Dakota digital into the American Autowire kit. And they've given me wires and plugs for a lot of the gauge stuff. I need to figure out what I'm going to use as far as harnesses and power from the Autowire set and what I'm going to use from the Dakota digital, and then splice the two and make my runs. I just fished the oil pressure sender and the Dakota digital water temp sensor up through the firewall, and I'm looking for a good place to mount this switch. Now this is the selector that lets me start and stop different functions and adjust the brightness. It came with a little mount to put it up under, but I believe the hole is pretty darn close to the same size as my wiper hole. And this is, I don't know if I can do it while holding the camera. And if not, I'll open this hole up a little bit to make it work, but that would be pretty slick. Ah, so close. Yeah, I'm gonna open that up. I'm gonna mount it right there. It'll be nice and clean. Well, that worked out perfect, and that's gonna be really clean right there. I run Rain-X. I haven't had wipers in this car in over a decade. I don't drive it in the rain, so that works out perfect. It's an awesome location. I've got one sensor to hook up now. It's the speed sensor. I've got to get under the car for this one. But look at this minefield. If you've ever rolled over a zip tie with a creeper, you know that it is miserable, and this is about as bad as it gets. So I need to do a little bit of cleaning up, but a little while back I put this cross member up and I found that my speed sensor is right in the way of the cross member, so I did a little clearancing. I put a hole there, I'll hook that up, fish the wire through, and I'll be back on the grid. I've got my circuits split here, and it looks like a mess, but there's a little bit of method to my madness. This is going to be everything for the column, so I'll pin that out once it's in the car. I think it'll be easier in the car. I've split everything that I need to go through the front to through the firewall, basically, the front of the car. And also, I've got everything here in the back that needs to go to the rear of the car. There'll be some other circuits also that go later, but that's just from these main ones. And then this last section here is everything that needs to come in over here to the panel. This would be a lot easier if I had easy access to it, but I know once it's up in there, I don't want to lay on my back to do this. So what I intend to do is hook as much as I can up here, and then I'll mount it and pull the slack up to where it needs to be, and then I can run my circuits. For the circuit for the rear, I should have some sort of opening here, kind of like I did on the other side. I'll run everything through here if I can. I'll kind of investigate that before I commit to it. And for the front, I've made a hole right under the hinge. Shop's messy. Coming a long way here. So what I did was I simply put a little hole here with a grommet. It's going to come out, tuck close behind the hinge, comes through here, and you can see I've already got a couple circuits prepped. This is my brake switch for down here, and this little guy wrapped around the brake line that used to say radio. That's now my line lock. So the line lock's going to get power directly to it because I'm going to switch it with the ground, and I'll probably tie that in with my two-step switch, that little micro switch we made earlier. Now's the fun part of hooking that panel up and rocking and rolling. This is what I ended up with here. So all of the leads got zip tied together, and I've got everything that was changed labeled. So for instance, my wipers are the line lock, and I've got this tucked together. What I'm going to do is loom this just so it's got a little extra protection. And then on the top side, I've got things split into categories like we saw there in a minute ago. I've got to clean that up a bit, so those will get cut, and I'll put the splices on so I can hook that to my column. I'll make that detachable so I can pull the column out if I have to. And then over here, I put an extra ignition circuit in it that I'm going to hide in the dash because you never know what you're going to run into. That way I've got keyed power over there if I want to run switches or accessories or anything in the future. It'll be nice to have something tied to the ignition. Well, it's a few days before the Buckeye Skips race. It's now Sunday, and the race is this Wednesday, or the test and tune day is Wednesday. The race starts on Thursday, and I'm still a long ways out on the car. I think I'm close enough, though, to wrap it up in the next 2 days, enough to race it. The car is wired. I just got to button up these front headlights and the tail lights in the back. I also have to wire in a horn. I've started putting some of the panels on, just enough to get me through the race. So the plan is, I was hoping to get this thing together just enough to run, right? So all the wiring's in, everything's legal. I can always do the body work and panel work later, and in the last touches, I'll get the doors on the car, the fenders. I still have to put the drive shaft in, kind of cutting it close, right? You can see I'm switching out the tail lights to the LED style. But I've got a major issue that I don't know that I'm going to be able to overcome. The Sniper EFI that I've hooked up had an issue while uploading the firmware. Now I've disconnected the fuel pump, that's what's hanging out here, just so it won't run. But this thing will not connect in any fashion to my Bluetooth module. The ECU appears to be bricked from that firmware update, which is going to stop me from being able to run the car. I haven't even started it. Unfortunately, it won't even hook to the laptop. I spent the money, bought the laptop cable, but I've got no connection, so I'm going to call Holley tomorrow. Again, it's Sunday. And hopefully I can get them to figure something out on this without shipping it in. It sounds like I'm going to have to ship this in, which means I'm going to be in a bad place. But if I can get them to straighten that out, I'll be able to fire the car off tomorrow, test and tune it, get things buttoned up and dialed in, and then hopefully I can run this car on Thursday up in Ohio. All right, so the back here for the taillights, I picked up some connectors on Amazon. These are real nice marine style clean connectors. And what I've done here is I just I legged in both the park and the turn, and it's in the wire loom, and I'll tie these in so it'll be a modern connector as opposed to the old 60s style boat connectors. And for the grounds, I like to ground everything independently. So each of these will have its own ground. A little trick I did for that was basically I took the spot weld tool and cleaned a perfect spot that's just larger than my connector here. And I'll have a nice connection there at each one of the spots. And you can see I did the same here. And this will get loomed just like the other stuff with some smaller loom just to clean everything up. And everything is shrink wrapped and solder joint connected, as you can see here. Alright, and here it is again. My T-union there, I just put a little tape on it. I'll put a small piece of wire loom here, and then again inside the light. This will all get tucked up and it'll look like a factory harness when it's all in there, tucked underneath. Well, this one's starting to get pretty long. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. You can only watch me pull so much wire. But the good news is the wiring is finished, and I'll give you a run through of what I've got. If you look in the back here, the fuel pump is set up. My sending unit, everything's wired in real clean. I've got those aftermarket connectors. And I took a lot of time in making sure that I had this wire loom on it just to dress everything up so it looks more factory. The taillights are sequential taillights, which look real cool when they operate. Inside the cab, the interior is in the car. It might be a little dark in here, but if I turn the key, you can see that I've got the Dakota digitals. Everything is wired in. I even took the time to put the indicators in, so when the turn signals are on, you can see either way that it goes that the turn signal's on. In the dash, air conditioning is in. Everything's operational there. Inside of the dash are my controls for the sniper and the AC. And then also on the top here, if I need to take this out, that houses all of the actual wiring for it, which I did crack this. I'm gonna have to get a replacement, but some cool little things I did here. I've got a switch here that I can arm for my line lock. So I'll push the clutch in, and there's a clutch switch too. I'll do another video on this, but basically as long as I'm holding this, it holds the line lock. That's what the red light is. And when I let go, it dumps it. And if I want to launch hard, I also have the two-step, which again, pushing the clutch, arm it. And then when I let go of the clutch, it drops both the line lock and the two-step. So it'll let me launch at a controlled RPM, which is pretty cool. Front of the car, the fenders are looking pretty grim. They need paint. It kind of mucks up the look of it in the front, but I've got one wire for the compressor I haven't hooked up because I don't want it to put power to that clutch yet. I need to charge the system. But here's that line lock, runs off a ground relay. All of the wiring for the underside here is actually tucked up under it. It's gonna be hard to see in this dark video, but it's tucked up tight, so it's out of the way. That's all of the headlights, the horn, all of this cluster right here. You can see again if I pull it out, it's all loomed and tucked in there. Some modern horns just to clean things up. Over here, start solenoid, I've got those two fuses that we looked at earlier. My excite wire for the starter solenoid here, and then my starter wire, my alternator wire here. Everything's nice and secure and clean. Any of the wires that come into the firewall for the sniper come through here. And then for anything else, power, it all comes to the bottom here. It's gonna be hard to see, but it's all nice and clean up in there. There's some little cuts and turns. Should have brought a flashlight, but this is the low budget film quality you get. And then we're back to the inside, so I'd call this a success. I'm pretty excited about it. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. Let me know what you think in the comments, and as always, I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video.